Could you believe it? This is already the 10th time that I'm doing this thing, and you guys are still able to go and come up with some very fascinating questions that I'll try to do my best to go and make the best answer for each of them. Hey everybody, welcome back to Q&A with AniMat. And with me, of course, as usual, I got 10 questions right here, which, well, I guess is pretty fitting that it is the 10th episode, and now I got 10 questions, and hopefully I will come up with 10 great answers for each of them. And with the first question that I got here, yes, we might as well get this show on the road already. The first one I got is going to be from Strider Blaze from Twitter, and Strider asks, how significant has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted your personal life? Well, if I could be very honest, it really does depend on the context that you are talking about. Like, which element of my life are you talking about specifically? Because honestly, the best answer that I can think of is that it has, but at the same time, it hasn't. In terms of my work, it hasn't really affected directly, or it didn't really affect it much. Mainly because this is my job. What I do is that I work at home and I make videos on YouTube. So really on that aspect, nothing has really changed. There's nothing that really made a significant impact where I had to go and adjust things because of the whole pandemic that's going on. The most that it really did affect is regarding the movie schedules for my reviews, because there have been several during the spring in which a lot of them ended up getting massively delayed for another time. And that kind of sucks because for me, I had to end up going and try to do a lot of change-ups on my schedules, and I had to think of some last-minute videos in order to compensate for that missing time slot. So that's how I ended up creating a bit more videos, and it was a little bit more stressful because now, like, the deadlines ended up becoming a lot more closer than expected, and I ended up making more videos that I haven't done in a while. Like, I did a little bit more editorials, and also I did more top 10 videos or top 5 videos and stuff like that. That's something I haven't done in a while, but at least because of this pandemic, it is encouraging me to do a little bit more of those. So at least you guys are getting the benefit of getting a little bit more of a variety on my channel. So there is that. Now, not all of the movies that I originally planned to review have all been delayed. I did decide I'm gonna do like the ones that were originally released in theaters but moved to video on demand. That's how I ended up actually reviewing stuff like Trolls World Tour and Scoob. But even at that though, those movie schedules, they're kind of like minor, and in terms of my job, I would say that it affected minimally. And honestly, even in my personal life, there really isn't a whole lot that changed as well. For the most part, it did remain the same a little bit, and even if there were some changes, a lot of it is more because I made that as a little bit of my New Year's resolution and stuff like that, including doing a little bit more cooking. Where, like, even before this pandemic, I already wanted to commit into trying to do a little bit more cooking, trying to do a little bit more complex dishes, and try to make a lot more of my own, like, leftovers that I could have for lunch and stuff like that. But I would say, and also, one more thing to mention is that I am also a bit of a workaholic, and most of my time is actually spent on working on my videos. So in that regard, considering that it made minimal effect on my work, it also did minimal effect on my personal life. But one thing that it really did affect the most, it would have to be regarding my social life. And because of this, I wasn't able to go and visit my friends as much as I would like to, or as frequently, as I used to, because before this pandemic, oddly enough, like, we were hanging out a little bit more frequently, and then suddenly this whole thing happened, and suddenly our hangouts just suddenly stopped. Now, of course, we are still in touch, and we still talk frequently on Facebook and stuff like that, but there is that part of me that really does miss my friends. And if there is one thing I'm excited, like, if there's one reason why I'm excited for this pandemic to be over, is to go visit my friends, and not to mention to also visit my family as well, because like, yeah, it is nice to have, like, you know, some alone time, to have some, like, peaceful times at home and stuff, but it is still kind of weird to go and celebrate some holidays without the family, or to have, like, to not have as much family gatherings as I used to. So yeah, that's the one thing that COVID made me do a lot, is miss my friends and family. Oh, that, and also I have cleaned my room a lot. Like, that's probably the biggest thing. And I don't mean, like, regular clean your room thing. I mean, like, do a massive spring cleanup where I got rid of a lot of junk and made a lot more room in my home, and yeah, like I said, in my room specifically. Oh, and one more thing that it did affect is that I think as of 2020, or as I'm recording this, I have not gotten a haircut this year. Yeah, you won't find me protesting on the streets, being desperate, holding signs that said I need a haircut. I'm letting this thing grow until this thing is over and my hair salon is officially open, so that something can be done for this. But for now, I'm keeping my lion mane, so this thing is staying for a while, or at least as long as this pandemic is still happening. Alright, so the next question that I have over here is going to be coming from Stella Newman, and Stella asks me, I'm not sure if you answered this already, but what was the name of the song that plays during the credits in some of your most recent videos, like the special reviews and editorials? Ah, yes, that one. And for those of you who don't know what Stella is talking about, she's referring to this little piece of music. Now, you might have heard that if you've been watching a lot of my videos. This often plays in my credits, and that piece of music is actually called New York City from the PlayStation 1 game Muppets Race Mania. And that was an old game that I liked to play as a kid. Like, it's not a great game, really. Like, it is still technically a Mario Kart ripoff and stuff, but it's not really that bad. In fact, I would debatably say it's one of the better Muppet games out there, you know? Like, I do recommend, like, you would give it a shot. Like, you would be surprised. It's actually pretty enjoyable. But anyways, yes, that's basically the song that I would often use, you know, because I feel like it does reflect on my style and the type of videos that I would make, and like, it does suit a little bit of my personality, so that's why I would often go with that one. But one of the main reasons why I would often use it is mainly because it's one of those pieces of music that the copyright system on YouTube just doesn't necessarily care about. And I mean, YouTube doesn't necessarily care about a whole lot of different pieces of music from like weird old video games, especially ones that like nobody really talks about or really cares about, like freaking Muppet Race Mania. I don't think YouTube is really gonna make a fuss out of like a little piece of music from Muppet Race Mania. Now, I know technically what I've done here isn't necessarily like looked upon as something people should do, because yeah, like I understand that what I've done with those credit musics, like, it's a little bit questionable in terms of actual copyright laws and stuff like that. But honestly, I know this might sound insane, and I don't know if I could do this, but, you know, I would like to know, like, where I can go and buy the rights to that piece of music. If that's actually possible, then hopefully I can. I mean, technically, it is a THQ game, so I don't know if they would have it available, but I don't know, like, if the price is right, then I'm ready to go and actually buy it. Okay, so the next question that we have over here is gotta be from Kamalim Kageko. I think that's how you say her name. Maybe not. I don't know. I apologize if I have butchered that. But anyways, Cam said to me, which female animators or animation directors have influenced you the most? Now, I will say that is a very fascinating question, and actually a very good question, considering that, unfortunately, even to this day, female animators and female directors are still a rare breed, or at least ones that people can recognize, like female animators or female animation directors that do have a recognizable name. And I know that there are some prominent ones out there, of course, like on television, you got Laura Faust, and you got Rebecca Sugar, and even in movies, you also got people like Brenda Chapman, which Brenda, I would say, is an admirable one, especially with her huge line of history working in animation, from movies such as Beauty and the Beast, The Lion King, then The Prince of Egypt, and then also being the person responsible for creating Brave. And then you also have Jill Colton, whom she is also a prominent director in animation, who directed Open Season and DreamWorks' Abominable. But if there is one that I would say that I admire the most and would probably have the most influence that I look up to, it would have to be Jennifer Yu Nelson. And for those of you who don't know, Jennifer Yu Nelson is the director of Kung Fu Panda 2, and I think she also helped out in Kung Fu Panda 3 as well. And I still stand that Kung Fu Panda 2 is not only the best Kung Fu Panda movie, but I think one of the best animated sequels. It's such a phenomenal film. It really builds up from what was previously done in the first Kung Fu Panda, which was already a great movie. So honestly, the work that she implemented onto that film, I think it really is admirable. And honestly, I do feel like more people should look up to Jennifer Yu Nelson, especially for women who want to get into animation, like to really aspire to get up onto that level, or at least in terms of movies, to get on the same level one day as like people as Brenda Chapman or Jennifer Yu Nelson. I know there are others who would like to go rather into television and be like Laura Faust, or to be like, or is it Laura Faust or Laura Faust? I don't know. Maybe I might have. I don't know. If I said that wrong, then I do apologize. Yeah, like, I know there are some that are highly admirable, like Rebecca Sugar or Lauren Faust. Definitely look up to those animators as well. They're amazing people and have brought in a massive positive influence in the field of animation, especially during the 2010s. But yeah, for me, my answer would definitely be Jennifer Yu Nelson. Okay, so the next question that we got here will be from Monkey Juice. And Monkey Juice asks me, if there were any attraction / ride from any Disney park you think should have never been closed down, which one would it be? Would you even consider doing a top 10 list explaining the rides attractions that should have never been closed down? Well, to go and answer that question, well, I think, like, the first one that I think it's obvious for everyone, and probably the answer that most people would have, obviously, would be Journey into Imagination from Epcot, especially regarding the fact that it is the most popular not just the most popular, but it is the most beloved attraction that had ever been in Epcot. So I think hands down, Journey into Imagination would be up there on the list. But if I would have a personal one, and this is a bit of a hard one to really think about, and I know there are a lot of, like, fan favorites that are no longer here with us, like, you know, it would be nice to have the Great Movie Ride back, especially, like, if they could go and actually update it to make it more relevant, to make it better than it was before. But, you know, honestly, I'm trying to look back, and it's hard to truly think of an answer. But if I could actually think of one that I would want to bring back, and this is my personal opinion, this is one from like my childhood that I often enjoyed. Believe it or not, it would have to be Food Rocks. I know it's a stupidly cheesy attraction, no pun intended. You know, it's absolutely ridiculous, and it is kind of dumb, but it's one of those childhood favorites that, as a kid, I always loved checking out Food Rocks. I always enjoyed watching the show, even though it's far from the best ride at Disney World or at any of the Disney parks. And, like, nowadays, yeah, like, when you look at it, it is a little bit preachy with its message of good nutrition and stuff like that. That was something that, as a child, like, it's more for the sake of, like, reliving my childhood and just checking out Food Rock. So that's honestly my answer on that. And, regarding your second question about doing a top 10 list about, rides and attractions that should have never been closed down, I'm sure like many of the YouTubers that specialize in theme parks have already done those. So I don't know like if putting in my own spin to it would be anything special, but I will say this. Honestly, I would very much be open to actually do a video based on like Disney rides or about theme parks and stuff like that. But then again, like, I know there's gonna be that handful of people that get triggered whenever I would go and make a video that's not animation related and stuff like that. So honestly, like, maybe if I would think about an idea to mix in animation with theme park rides, maybe that would be something. But honestly, like, I would not hesitate to go and do a theme park based video, like rather it be like an editorial or a top 10. I just need to go and think about a good idea for it. Oh, I think I just thought of one. Oh my god. Okay, I think I just thought about a really good top 10. I'm not gonna say what it is. Oh, but I think I actually got an idea. Okay, so the next question that we got here is going to be from Aubrey Abraham, and this one will be from Facebook. And Aubrey asks me, since you and Toucan LDM are working on Animation Look Back Walt Disney Animation Studios Plus, how does it feel to work with the guy? I'm going to be very honest here. Working with Logan is honestly amazing. And the thing with the addition of Logan is that what he has done is add something that honestly has been lost in the recent animation lookbacks, like something that I haven't done in a long time. That used to be a little bit of a tradition, but then as time would move on, it would pretty much disappear, and it would just stick to the clips and just me talking about the history and stuff like that. And that is actually including those animations. There was a time before, like years ago with Animation Look Back Pixar or Studio Ghibli, where I would actually do my own animations. I would used to do that style of animation, but like, I actually personally do understand that it actually does take a very long time to do. Like, it's a lot of hard work, and you know, it takes a lot of time to just build the puppets, to do the animations. It is a very long and complicated process, but with Logan coming in, someone who has done a lot more experience in that thing, honestly, he really brought back that magic onto Disney animation, and it's mainly because of him where he ended up supplying many of the most memorable moments that we have gotten from Animation Look Back Disney Plus so far. And a lot of them have been so much great surprises that even really surprised me, because I'll be honest, I gave Logan a great amount of creative control to let him do whatever he wanted. I would just give him like a sentence or two of what I want for this particular moment and give him a clip of the audio of when I'm talking about it, and he just does the rest. But what I think is really beautiful about his contribution, or or what makes this animation look back much more beautiful than it could ever be is the massive collaboration that ends up occurring in the show. And I don't mean with just me and Logan, but also the other people that Logan would actually bring in. He would bring in other artists to be involved with the animations. He would bring in other voice actors. You know, it suddenly turns Animation Look Back into a massive collaborative project for the purpose of telling the history of Disney animation. And again, I feel like it really does make it more beautiful than it could have ever been. So honestly, one of the best decisions I've ever done for Animation Look Back Disney Plus is bringing on board Logan to this project. Okay, so the next question that we have over here will be from Brian Walsh, and Brian asks me, even though you are a huge Nintendo fan, do you have a favorite game not made by Nintendo or not on a Nintendo console, or any favorite games in this case? Well, I think it is safe to say that if I do have one favorite game not made by Nintendo, it's hands down Epic Mickey. I'm probably one of the biggest Epic Mickey fans out there, to the point that I even dedicated an entire web series all about Epic Mickey. So I think that is hands down like an obvious thing to say. But a non-Nintendo console game, well, that's actually a pretty good question right there. And I know that, actually my first home console that I've ever gotten was actually the first PlayStation. So there were several games that I really did enjoy playing on that, including the original Crash Bandicoot games, like the original trilogy and Crash Team Racing made by Naughty Dog. But if I would have to point to like what could possibly be my favorite non-Nintendo game from a non-Nintendo console, it would have to be hands down BioShock. I really love that game. It is so atmospheric. They really did a phenomenal job building up this entire world where it almost shares the same kind of atmosphere as like any of the Disney parks. It really is that good, and it really is that immersive, and plus going into that story, and it has a very fascinating commentary put into it. Such a beautiful and well-crafted game. I think it was one of the very few games I ended up playing several times, actually, just for the sake of seeing like how the multiple endings would actually be. But then also I will say, if you guys are curious about my thoughts on the other games, there's BioShock 2 also that did have a lot of promise where you could actually play as a Big Daddy, but the problem with that game is that it's just okay. Like, it is a decent game, but compared to the first, it definitely was a major letdown. But then things really start to pick up when BioShock Infinite came in. Now that is a fascinating game that really got back to the same level as the first BioShock. So really, my answer to that, if I would have to say I have a definitive favorite game that's not on a Nintendo console, it would have to be BioShock and BioShock Infinite. Now, the next question that I have over here is going to be from Ryan, and Ryan asks me, do you enjoy the Walt Disney Treasures DVD series? I saw that you received The Adventures of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit in one of your mail videos, and I'm interested to know if you love the series as well. Honestly, absolutely yes. They really do define treasures in Walt Disney Treasures. I mean, they really are a fascinating collection to go and check out. And I don't just have the Oswald one. Also, from What's in the Box, I also received the Disneyland collection as well. And even with the Oswald collection, technically it doesn't have all the shorts. I think it only has about half of them, and at the time the other half was considered lost before one by one a few of them were actually discovered. But still, even the stuff that they have in there are actually very fascinating. In the Oswald DVD, that's where I discovered the A Iwerks documentary, and it really was very fascinating to go and check out. If you guys have not seen that Iwerks documentary, I highly recommend you go and do so. It's a documentary made by Iwerks' granddaughter, Leslie Iwerks, whom already she's an amazing documentarian. She already did the Pixar story, and she did the Imagineering story on Disney+, so that's also one that I highly recommend you go and check out. But, going back into the series, yeah, I definitely do love I definitely do admire them, and it's honestly something that I wish I have a lot more of, because so far, those are the only ways that you can actually get a physical copy of the cartoons, especially, and those are probably the most valuable ones, like the cartoons of all the Mickey Mouse, all the cartoons of Goofy, all the cartoons of Donald Duck, of Pluto, and many more of those. Like, that's what really makes them valuable, is that, and that's what really makes them treasures, is because of those collections, and I would love to actually go and get them. The only problem is that the only way you can get them is on eBay, and sometimes they can be absolutely stupidly expensive. So honestly, that would be a massive investment to go and spend on, but that would honestly be something that I would love to have. And one day, if Disney is still considering to ever do this, if they're still really interested in the Blu-ray market, one day I would love to see these cartoons come out in a box set on Blu-ray, kind of like what Warner Brothers has done with the Looney Tunes, where they had the Golden Collection on DVD and then they had the Platinum Collection on Blu-ray. I would love them to see if they can bring the Walt Disney Treasures onto Blu-ray. And before anyone asks, please do not mention at all about that ridiculous Blu-ray with those little Mickey Mouse cartoons for Mickey's 90th birthday. That thing is almost like a freaking joke. And especially the cover, that's one of the few things that make me regret doing the top 10 worst DVD and Blu-ray covers early. I mean, like, look at this thing. Like, this is a freaking cover? What the fridge is this? Now, the next question that I have is a pretty fascinating one, and this is going to be from Jordan Inkura. And Jordan asks me, how do you determine what the highlight is of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast? Well, in terms of picking what would be the highlight, I guess I would just go and select which story would be, like, the most appealing. What is the most eye-catching of them all, or which is the one that I had the most to say about it and, like, really have, like, the biggest things to really go and talk about it. Like, mainly, I guess it would be, like, which one is the one that, like, which story would be the one that, would be technically the strongest out of all of them, because there are a few stories I would talk about in the podcast where, like, sometimes they would just be like a few minutes long and, like, it's just like a quick passover thing. Like, yeah, it's just like a quick little mention that this thing happened. But then there are those as well where I would definitely talk in length about those parts in particular, or I would really have a lot to go and say about them. So I think really the answer to that would be, like, which one would be the strongest story to highlight on its own compared to the rest of that particular episode. And I'm sure at this point a lot of people would be curious to know regarding how do I pick a story to talk about in my podcast? Like, what would determine that a story would end up being on AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast? Well, number one, I will say that I limit myself to 5, or at least up to 5, because it does happen when I would just talk about 4 individual stories and that's it. Depending on the week, if it's strong enough or if there's not as much stories to go and talk about. But I think the main thing for me to go and fully discuss a story, like to have a story be on the podcast, would really determine if I would have a lot to say about them, if it does give me enough material to actually go and discuss what I have seen and what I have read and what are my thoughts about it, what are my opinions. So it really does determine on that. It's mainly about how much do I have to say about it? And sometimes there are weeks as well where there's like so many news happening in one week where I would have to go and make some sacrifices, and like I would have to take out this story in order to make room for this one because it seems more fitting for AniMats Crazy Cartoon Cast, and I would have a lot more to say on this one as well. So that's pretty much the main thing for anyone who is more curious about if I would have anything really to say about it, if it does pique my interest, if I know what to discuss about the subject in particular, and if I know what to say on these things specifically. So that's how a story ends up becoming on AniMats Crazy Cartoon Cast. And hopefully, like, that will answer that question, and also answer Jordan's question as well. Okay, so the next question I have will be from Kenneth Strawdard, and Kenneth asks me, hi, this is Kenneth Strawdard, or Kenny, I should say. Okay, well, we got the introductions already. And I would like to know, what was your favorite editorial video that you have ever done, or the most fun time you have ever, since you started making videos? Let me know what you think. My favorite editorial. Oh boy, that's actually a good question. You know, honestly, I will say that I love doing these editorials. In a way, they're kind of like their own mini animation lookbacks in a sense, where I can actually focus on the history of one particular movie. And like, I could pretty much go and talk about like whatever I want, and go and discuss about some fascinating stories about like making movies. Like, those are often like really fun to do. Like, probably to answer that question would be like to talk about the history of miscellaneous movies that have really fascinating stories about them. Rather it be stuff like Food Fight or the Emoji Movie, or just recently I did one on the 2019 Cats movie that was actually pretty fascinating to talk about. But I will say also there is one, or I should say two in particular, that I'm really proud of, and I was honestly shocked that this is not bigger than it should be, and that is, well, not my videos, but at least the story itself in particular, and it is the Legends of Oz video, where like when you do your research and like you put all the pieces together, you do realize that this is all such a massive, elaborate scam, and it's honestly kind of shocking how some of these guys are getting away with it, or at least like not entirely just yet, mainly because there are a few of these people that are currently in jail, and there are some of these people like a few months ago I saw technically the distributor of Legends of Oz, or the guy handling the distribution of Legends of Oz, William Sadler. Right now he's in court because of the usual things that I would go and talk about, because of like shady practices and suspicions of scams and stuff like that. So honestly, that is something that one day I would like to get more updates from the investors about what's going on and how the trials are going and how the court cases are going with them. So far, like, as you could tell with these current times, things are going extremely slow with the process, but I will say, when I do get a major update on what is going on with the court cases related to Legends of Oz, you can definitely guarantee that I will go and make a third video about it, because this definitely is something that more people should be aware about, and more people should know that often these scams do exist and that these people are definitely shady characters. Alright, so I have one more question to go, and the lucky person to have that last question will be from Lassie Dog 12. And Lassie asks me, I was thinking of doing a video topic about the Lion Guard. Do you have any advice to make a good essay video? Well, considering that you are doing an essay video, and this is not just like a straightforward review where all you're doing is just pitching out your thoughts and that's it, I think the best advice that I can give out to you and anybody who wants to do an essay video or like these kinds of analytical videos and stuff like that, there is no such thing as too much research. do as many as possible. Don't be afraid to really go deep into it, into the subject that you are talking about, to gather as much information and as much research and as much materials as possible in order to have more than enough to go and discuss about what you want to talk about. Like, a great example is the fact that you want to do one about the Lion Guard. Well, at that point, of course, you got to do all your research necessary on the Disney Junior show, like how it got made, how successful did it get, how deep does it go into the Lion King lore and the Lion King lore and stuff like that. But also, don't be afraid to extend your research to not just limit yourself to just the Lion Guard, but also really get down into the history of the Lion King and really look into the cultural impact of that movie in particular, like how it really changed movies, how it really changed the face of entertainment as we know it, and how that became one of the biggest pop culture icons of an entire generation, not just like during the 1990s, but it really is one of the biggest franchises in entertainment history and one of Disney's biggest entertainment franchises. And even, like, I could say that right now as someone who is currently doing Animation Look Back Disney Animation Plus, where I know that I have to collect more than enough research material. Like, as I'm recording this right now, I'm actually doing the movies on the Disney Renaissance, and at first, they can definitely be intimidating with the amount of research material, but you really have to take your time to gather all the information necessary to properly go and talk about what you want to talk about for your essay video. And that's essentially why the best thing to go and approach it is that about half of your time in making your video, or at least a good chunk of it, should be dedicated to just researching, to look up as many information as possible, to read as many books as you can, to go and watch as many videos about the subject in particular, and making sure that your source is valid, because that's another important thing regarding research, is to make sure that you go into a valid source and not just pick up any information that you just read on the internet. Make sure that you know that the source is true, you know the source is coming from something legitimate and not just something like, oh, I picked it up on social media, oh, I just picked it up on Wikipedia without knowing if there's an actual source to it. You know, that's another piece of advice I could give you, is just make sure that your sources are 100%. And other than that, I would say that's pretty much the big advice that I could go and give you, is to make sure that you have to go and collect as much research as you can in order to go and make your video. And that should go and conclude this episode of Q&A with AniMat. So I would like to say thank you so much to everyone who has asked me a question. And if you have a question you would like to ask me to appear on another episode of Q&A with AniMat, then don't hesitate to go and ask me wherever, whether it be in the comments or on social media or on, like ask me on Facebook or on Twitter or wherever. Don't forget to go and specify that you would like it for Q&A with AniMat, and maybe I will go and answer them for you. So with all that said and done, I would like to go and say thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, see you later, dudes!